what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys checking today's video out. And guys, today we're going to be addressing a subject that I've touched upon in the past, but I really want to get into this a little bit more depth because I don't know the answer to this, and I'm hoping that somebody out there can tell me what the answer is. I want to understand how so many people can fish professionally in the year 2023 with how expensive it is to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the cost here of what it takes to fish and live. I know because I've done it for 35 years. I'll sort of tell you my situation, how I did it, and how it's changed a lot over the years. But the point is as expensive as it is in 2023, I don't understand how anybody does it. So we're going to have that conversation. I definitely would be curious to get your guys' feedback on this too. So real quick, guys, just a couple daily housekeeping tips. Just wanted to remind everybody that we have our Fish the Moment summer lake map breakdowns up on the website now. And we got all the major lakes across the country for the summer months. If we have a lake, if there's a lake that you want to fish or know more about that's not on the website, you can book a virtual lesson with us and we can go over that. It's a really good way to learn more about your favorite lake. And also, anyone interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, just shoot me a quick private message on my Facebook page, Randy Blockett, Professional Angler, for the details. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, here it is. Now, everything's changed because, man, here's the scenario on what's happened in professional fishing the last 20 years. The entry fees have gone up, the payouts have gone down, the sponsor opportunities have gone down, yet there's more people fishing professionally now than there ever has. Something doesn't add up. The math doesn't add up here, guys. So I'm going to go through this a little bit, and I'm curious to get your guys' feedback here. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about here. I've got some stuff written down about basically just what it costs to fish at the tour level. Now, when I'm talking about the tour level, I'm talking about events that are the $5,000 entry fee events, which are the Elite Series, the Bass Pro Tour, the Tackle Warehouse Tour, the NPFL, those type of things. $5,000 or more on those tournaments. So when you talk about paying that type of an entry, and then you're talking about your lodging, your food, all your insurances, your tow vehicle, your boat, all that type of stuff, miscellaneous, incidentals, everything that it takes to travel just in tournaments, I'm putting that at a ballpark of $150,000 a year. Now, it can be more than that, or it could be less than that based upon people's travel, habits that they do. But anymore, guys, bass boats are $100,000 anymore. And all these guys putting 5 units on their boat, electronic units, that's another $25,000, $30,000. So I think it's a pretty fair assessment to say it's going to cost $150,000 a year right off the bat, before you even made a cast. $150,000 a year. Now, this doesn't include what it costs just to live at home. If you have a family of 4 and you've got a mortgage payment, you got insurance, you got your food, you got your utilities, you got childcare, you got incidentals, you got the dental bills. I mean, you got just the stuff that it takes to live. For a family of 4, you're looking at least $60,000. Now, that's a minimum right there. $60,000 for a family of 4. That would be living very modestly on top of that, very modestly. So realistically, that figure could be double that easy. But for the sake of conversation, we'll just put it at $60,000, meaning that a professional angler, before they even caught a fish or start a tournament, they're going to be responsible for generating well over $200,000 worth of income right off the bat. Okay, I don't think anyone can disagree with that. And this is knowing since I've done this, so I think that's a pretty fair assessment. So we'll put it at $210,000. Now, let's say there's 6 tournaments, pro tournaments, and let's just say you've had a kick-ass year and you finish in the top 50 in every tournament, and you get a $10,000 check. So if you have this awesome year, you've cashed every check, every tournament, so you've made $60,000 in prize money for that particular season. And you probably finished in the top 10 in the Angler of the Year points. If you've cashed a check every tournament, you're probably going to finish in the top 10. So let's say you have an awesome season and you win $60,000. You are still $90,000 in the hole just on the tournaments. That's not including your living expenses. You're $120,000. You've had an awesome season. You're $120,000 in the hole after having an awesome top 10 year in Angler of the Year points. Now, let's talk a little bit about the compensation from sponsors to get around this, guys. Sponsorships now are harder than they've ever been. There's more people fishing. Ever since 2008, when we had the stock market crash, the companies cut back everybody, and they saw they could get away with it. So it's never returned to the pre-2008 sponsor compensation levels. So sponsorships are harder than they've ever been to get, by far. Boat companies don't sponsor people like they used to. You've got 5% of the guys out there that are probably making pretty good living off of sponsorships. 5%, guys. So let's just say you've worked hard and you've got some good sponsors behind you, and you're knocking down $50,000 a year in sponsorship. And yeah, there's 5% of the guys that are making more of that. There's a lot of guys that aren't even there's a lot of guys that aren't even pulling in $50,000 a year. So that puts you up to $140,000, just with your sponsorship and your winnings. So at that point, you are 100 or 130. You're $80,000 in the hole for the year. Now, so here's the reality of it, guys. You've had a great season out there. You got top 10s in every turn, or you got checks in every tournament. You've got a solid sponsor base that's paying you $50,000 a year, and you're still losing $80,000 a year off of what I would consider being in the top 10% of anglers in terms of performance and sponsorships. And then what happens is every 12 months you got to do this again. You got to repeat it over and over again. You got to come up with those entry fees again, and it's a never-ending cycle. So here's my question to you guys. How is it that we have hundreds of guys out there that can afford to eat a loss of nearly $100,000 every single year and continue to keep fishing? It don't add up to me. The math does not add up to me. Now, here's the possible scenarios. First of all, like I said, you can't count the top 5% that are actually, making a living through sponsorships and winnings, that type. We're talking about the other 95%. If you're one of those anglers out there that is an outlier, say for example, you don't have any kids, you don't have any expenses, you live in a trailer house, or you live at home, you don't have any other thing going on except taking care of yourself, yeah, that number is going to be reduced quite a bit if you have that. Other than that, the only way that people are able to afford this is through some type of independent wealth, family wealth, having a business of your own, some type of income sources that are completely not related to fishing. Now, it wasn't this way when I was doing it, and it started to get that way as I started to get away from the tour level events a little bit more. Back when I was doing it, it was easy to get sponsors. It was easy to have some pretty lucrative sponsors. The entry fees were cheaper. They were basically half as what they are now, and the payouts were double. So if you were a high-performing angler, you could win quite a bit of money and generate quite a bit of sponsor income. It's not like that anymore. Everything has changed since then. That reality no longer exists. But my question is, it's sort of a question and a comment both, I don't think it can be denied that professional bass fishing on the tour level is becoming an elitist sport. If you have hundreds of guys that can absorb $100,000 loss every single year and continue to fish and continue to do what they do, that is a sad reality in my opinion out there, because what that does is that effectively eliminates so many different people out there that would like the opportunity to fish professionally, and they're never going to get it. They're never going to get it because they can't afford it. They cannot afford to compete at the top level. I know dudes here that fish Missouri that are local hammers. These guys, they fish the smaller events around here, and they would be stars on the circuit. There's no doubt in my mind, but they'll never get a chance because they can't afford it. They've got average jobs. They got responsibilities. They don't have access to the sponsor money. They can't afford to absorb $100,000 loss a year, even after having a good season. Now, what if you have a bad season? Say, for example, you only make the money in 3 of the 6 tournaments, which is that's not sucking. That would probably put you at mid-pack. But if you only made the money in 3 of the 6 tournaments and you don't have a strong sponsor base, you could be in the hole for $150,000 a year. So this is something that needs to be talked about. Any single person out there that has the desire to be pro fisherman ought to understand this reality before they get into it. And more importantly than that, the industry as a whole has got to quit perpetuating, making our sport into an elitist sport. And if we continue to have boats that cost $100,000 and we're continuing to have these live scope setups and 10 transducers that cost $20,000 and $30,000 to compete, and if we have to spend $70,000 on a tow vehicle, it's just not cool, man. It's not right. It's a sad day, because guys like myself never would have been able to have a career in pro fishing if it was right now. And there's the sad reality of it, guys, right now is, and I'm gonna come right out and say it. I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but 95% of the time right now, if you have a serious desire to be a professional bass angler at the tour level, and you don't come from some type of money background, some type of family money particularly, you're not going to make it. You're simply not going to make it. That's just like you're not going to be elected as a United States Senator unless you have somebody backing you with millions of dollars. It's the same thing with pro fishing. And to a large degree, the industry is responsible for that. The industry has continued to accelerate the cost, what it costs to participate, whether it be in entry fees or, boats and motors, everything, all the high dollar items out there. And it's created this very, very unfortunate place that we're at in the sport. And you guys, I hear all the time guys saying about I'm negative and moaning and griping about the sport. Guys, I love the sport. I do. And the reason that I bring this to attention is because it's just not right. It's not right because it discriminates against people that don't have money. Professional bass fishing, and I will say it and I'll stand behind it, professional bass fishing discriminates against people of low income class. It does, even of middle income class. And until that we address that situation, it's not going to get any better. I've got a lot of different answers for it. I know how to address the situation, but nobody's going to go for it because nobody wants to cut into profit margins. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have an answer to this, I'd love to hear it, because it's something that really, really, it just makes me sad to hear. It makes me sad to see. It makes me sad for the people that love it and want to do this worse than anything, but they simply can't. They can't do it. They can't afford it. And I'm not saying people are bad if they come from wealthy families, but that's basically the situation you have to be in anymore to be a tour level pro, especially starting out. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Much appreciated. We'll talk later.